Hi, it's Tuesday, May 27th, and we're continuing to track Invest 90E off the coast of Mexico today. You can see the system spinning here counterclockwise, 200 miles south of the coast, and the system has continued gradual development over the past day. Yesterday, we talked about how the system at the surface had an open trough axis, not really yet at that point a area of low pressure at the surface. Over the past 12 to 24 hours, we've seen that change, and now we have what is likely a surface reflection of the area of low pressure that was developing in the mid levels with the convection that we saw yesterday. And you can see just at a broad sense of the system, there's much more counterclockwise rotation with this system as apparent today. And we haven't seen much organization of the convection in mass. We have seen some convection trying to blossom in the center part of the circulation, which may begin to hint at more organized convection forming. But this is certainly still a step in the right direction, and we seem to still be on track for development sometime tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon off the coast of Mexico. The forecast intensity-wise really has not changed too much. The environment is favorable for further development of this. You can see in the water vapor imagery, we have this clockwise rotation aloft, which is denoting that high pressure system that we talked about a couple of days ago forming over this low, and this is promoting a low shear environment and upper level divergence. That's where the latent heat released by these thunderstorms gets exhausted through outflow channels, and we have two of those going over Mexico and towards the equator. A very healthy type pattern for a system like this that's developing into a tropical cyclone. And you can see that GFS continues on what it's said over the past few days, development tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon into a tropical storm. And from there on, we see development on the model, or intensification rather, into what may be a hurricane. And that seems to be the current expectation from intensity guidance. And the Hurricane Center has now gone near 100% chance of development on this system, which makes sense with the developments we're seeing today, and that the environment is going to be favorable for the next several days for the system to form. Now, there has been some slight change in the track forecast, which is primarily what this video is going to be about, is the forecast for the track has changed ever so slightly, and it has changed with the uncertain pattern that we talked about up north. We talked about for the past several days, there's been two main governing factors for this system's track. The primary one at the start is this mid-level ridge over Mexico and the western Bay of Campeche. This is keeping the system on a northwestward trajectory for the most part of its life. Now, eventually it's going to run into this upper level low, which is cutting off here off the southeast coast, or southwest coast rather, of the United States. And I've talked about before how this low is more uncertain, and cutoff upper lows like this can be difficult for models to handle. And you can often see a lot of variance run to run in how this upper low is positioned. And we have certainly seen in the past day a little bit of a trend towards a more east solution of this. I'll run through the past few runs of the GFS ensemble, which is a bundle of 31 different GFS runs averaged out in this plot. So you're seeing a consensus of 31 different GFS runs in one map here. And you can see there's a general trend over the past day to have this upper low positioned closer to the Baja California Peninsula. Now, this is not a huge shift by any stretch of the imagination, but pay attention just how closely correlated the upper level low position and our storm position is. You see, as it shifts east, the storm also shifts east. And that's been a very consistent trend on models, is that wherever this upper level low is positioned, that storm will trend that way. And the reason for that is that as this upper low is further east, it's going to be setting the western edge of this ridge a little bit further east. And all this system's going to do, like I've talked about, is track along the western edge of that ridge. If it's set further east, it's going to follow that flow. And what we've seen now in the deterministic GFS run is a scenario where the system is closer to the coast of mainland Mexico. You can see this in a deterministic run here, showing the system still in a weakening state, but tracking very close to the coast. And I did talk about how the waters cool off here very fast as you go northwest towards Baja California. And that's still true, but there's this part of the water here just off the coast of South Mexico that remains a little bit warmer than the surrounding waters. You can see this in the HAPS model, that you see all that cold water as the system tracks northwest, but there's this patch here. If it stays closer to mainland Mexico, that's a little bit warmer. Now, shear is expected to still remain moderate as the system does track towards the coast. It may lighten a little bit. You can see the system does become track-wise more aligned with this upper level flow when it's starting to get sheared back here on Thursday and Friday. It's tracking northwest and getting sheared out of the south, and that's a pretty strong shear vector. In some soundings, we're getting 30-knot shear out of this. That's going to cause the system to weaken regardless of how strong it is or the size that it is. But as it gets towards the coast, it does turn more northeast, which is more aligned with the shear vector with this upper level high. So it may decrease the shear a little bit. Now that's going to still cause the system to weaken, but it may allow the system to maintain itself as a tropical cyclone a little bit longer instead of just dying off into a remnant low offshore. And you see that on the GFS, it makes landfall as a tropical storm on this model. And really all this does for impact is it brings a slightly more increased wind threat to the immediate coast where it makes landfall. Alongside that, it may increase a rainfall threat localized to where it makes landfall, because if you see here, we are definitely going to get this push of deep tropical moisture into Mexico regardless of what track this takes. But if it remains a stronger system, doesn't become a remnant low as quickly, the flow at the surface is a little bit stronger with that low, and with it moving over this warmer patch of water that may allow it to pick up a little bit more moisture and funnel it into the coast immediately here in mainland Mexico. And the high terrain here means that any moisture that comes up here is going to be like a sponge, like a wet sponge. When you squeeze it, all the water comes out of it. It may act like that, and you may get a band of thunderstorms that develops here that may be getting squeezed out by those mountains, and you get a localized area of heavy rainfall. And that could be a very significant threat, even if we don't get much of a wind threat, even if it does weaken to a remnant low, but it's still got a bit of a stronger area of low pressure at the surface compared to if it was further west over cooler waters. That may cause an increased flooding threat that would be very localized, but could still cause significant trouble as the system comes into the coast of Mexico. So this is certainly still something to pay attention to in northwestern Mexico and the Baja California Peninsula. We'll still watch for trends. Again, this is still a uncertain pattern. We've had changes a lot over the past couple of days with this upper level low and this ridge, but also we've had changes with this trough over the southern US. Some runs have had this come further south, which tries to suppress this ridge. Recent runs have trended this further north, which does not suppress it as much, and that could have an impact on this ridge, which could eventually have an effect on how this system tracks. So a lot of moving parts here, and this is still a 3 to 4 day forecast, so things are going to change still in this forecast. The main thing for those in Baja California and Western Mexico to do is just monitor it over the next few days. And the Hurricane Center will be initiating advisories on this sometime tonight or tomorrow morning whenever the system does develop into a hurricane, or not a hurricane, a tropical storm. And that will have their official track forecast on what you can expect for the system, on how it's going to track, and they'll have those out in regular increments as well. And I'll leave a link to their website at the top of the description, and also a link to the Mexican Weather Service as well, so you can get localized information on how the system will impact you over the next few days. That's all that I've got for today on this system. I'll have more videos as the system tracks northwest towards the coast of Mexico. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.